Someone must have been telling lies about me. For one fine morning, when I awoke in my modest 6-bedroom, 7,000 square foot house on Tracy Place, to find that without ever having done anything wrong, or right for that matter, without really ever having done anything at all except run a major metropolitan newspaper into the ground and kick thousands of poor people out of their apartments, I, Jared Kay, was being put in charge of the nation's pandemic response. Nothing like this had ever happened to me before. Except for that time I was put in charge of the border wall, and opioids, and prison reform, and presidential pardons, and the Middle East peace process. I'd better get someone in authority to help me, I thought to myself. There was no one in authority to turn to. That night, I was asked to stand beside the podium in the briefing room and wait for my turn at the microphone. It was prime time. The camera, as it trailed over us, seemed to be eyeing me with bland curiosity, as if it both did and did not expect something from me. Some comprehensive answer, perhaps. Some consoling truth. But what? It was a feeling I remembered from my bar mitzvah, for which I wore, more or less, come to think of it, the same suit. That same atmosphere of suspended significance, of enduring expectation. That same knowledge that everyone there had come together on this occasion to hear me decode from the lectern the coiled and inscrutable scrolls of the law. Only what was the law? Why did it seem at once so precise and so obscure? Where were the vowels? Where was the rabbi my parents had paid to help me? Now, as then, I felt myself exposed before an unruly and critical crowd. I tried to compose my face into an expression of purposefulness, or, failing that, into any expression at all. But my face was like putty. My features, for all their placid symmetries, refused to move. Had they ever moved? Perhaps they had forgotten how. Or perhaps, it's difficult to say, they found no profit in movement and were content to remain as they were. The cooler I am, the better in the end, I thought. There were, I gathered, certain laws of the land that pertain to situations such as a pandemic, though not being a trained lawyer, nor a trained epidemiologist, nor really a trained anything, I was unaware of them. Nonetheless, I gathered such laws surely must exist. And after all, we live, or used to live, in a country with a legal constitution. At last, it was my turn at the podium. The eyes of the audience were so tensely fixed upon me, so hungry for whatever knowledge I was about to impart, that for a moment I merely stood there in silence, as I had no knowledge at all to speak of. "Fellow citizens," I said, "I have arrived and am in charge." A burst of applause followed from the right side of the hall. "Bravo," someone shouted, clapping his hands high in the air. These people are easy to win over, I thought. It was elating to hear such breathless attention. In the stillness, I heard a subdued electrical hum that was more thrilling than the wildest applause. The only problem was the silence from the left half of the room, from which I heard one or two isolated jeers and a few muttered whisperings of "holy shit, we're all going to die." Nonetheless, I tried to retain my composure. I considered what I might say to win over the whole of the audience, once and for all. There can be no doubt that behind this committee, there is a great organization at work. 2 organizations, actually, with a tremendous number of hotels and golf courses around the world, and also quite a few luxury office buildings, in which, it should be noted, there is currently no little commercial space available at quite a reasonable price. At this point, I heard, or thought I heard, the sound of someone snickering. Suddenly I faltered. What faces these were around me. Had I been mistaken? Had I been too confident? Had I overestimated the effectiveness of my speech? That by bringing innovative solutions to these hard problems, we will continue to make progress. These are unusual times. A lot of things are happening very quickly, and we want to keep updating our models and making sure that we're making informed decisions and informed recommendations and based on the data that we're able to collect and focus on all the things that need to happen to make sure that we can deliver. But by now I had lost the thread. What was it we were supposed to deliver exactly? A hand went up in the back of the room. Who was it? My wife? A doctor? Someone who sympathized with my plight and wanted to help. I cleared my throat. My father-in-law was glaring again. It was what he did best. The room had no windows. It was difficult to breathe. Maybe I could use a ventilator, I thought. Was that a bad thing to think? Who was going to tell me what was good and what was bad? It seemed I could not completely rise to the occasion after all. It seemed I lacked the strength, the expertise, any sort of clue what I was doing or how to do it. I stood there at the lectern, my mouth opening and closing like a fish. I felt a constriction in my chest, a punitive tightness that might have been shame. Was this what shame felt like? It was difficult to see past the cameras, which for their part remained all too attentive. I felt their eyes bearing down on me. I felt them taking my measure in their steady, unblinking way. I felt as if they were appraising my actions for some future report, some cold and terrible judgment forming out beyond the horizon of everything I thought I could see. Someone must have been telling lies about me.